You need someone around you who can carry you as well, because this burden of what you're going to see is not something you can carry just by yourself. My name is Mads Nissen. I'm a documentary photographer working on social issues and contemporary issues and on conflicts and the fight for peace in the world. My work is about creating understanding, and it's based on a certain set of humanitarian values. Sometimes those stories take place in an office. Sometimes they take place in a beautiful garden like this one, but sometimes they take place in a combat zone or in an area under crisis. So that's what leads me to those places. I didn't go into this business for the adrenaline, for the rush of it. So whenever I move myself into a zone of combat, of conflicts, it's always because there's a story that I need to tell, and I can only tell it from within that place. So the motivation for me is always the story first, not to get a personal thrill out of it. And I think that might sound obvious, but still the most important thing you ask yourself before you start photographing in conflict zones or in crisis is, why are you doing it? Why do you need to put yourself at risk? Why do you make the ones who love you worried? What right do you have to photograph other people who are suffering? So I ask myself those questions all the time, whenever I'm doing a story in one of those complicated areas. In an area of war, in an area of conflict and crisis, people's lives are really on the edge. You are on the edge. And sometimes it's a cliche, but it's really true then. It brings out the best and the worst of people. You see people risking their lives to help strangers. I felt that myself. You see other people just only looking out for themselves and barely caring about their own, their own family members, just to save themselves, because people are in panic. So to me, on a human level, it's really an insight on the human psyche. You feel yourself while you're under pressure. How do you react? Do you run away? Do you hide? Do you fight? You learn about yourself as well. Obviously, if you're working in a conflict area, in a zone of crisis, you need to know what you're looking for. That is super essential. You don't have all the time in the world. You didn't just browse around and see what inspires you. I always try to prepare super well, have very good connections, and do it as fast, as efficient as possible in order to not put myself in more danger than necessary. You might become a photographer who's concerned about a specific story or a group of people or an individual, and that story might be in a conflict area. But that, to me, is what takes you there. That's the story, that's the people. It's not the conflict itself. My best advice to become a war photographer is to not become one. Become a concerned photographer. Become a photographer that wants to express or tell the rest of the world about this very complicated issue. That's why you should go there. And don't go there for yourself. Go there because that's where the story is, and unfortunately there's nowhere else to tell it. It might harm your body. It will definitely harm your soul. One thing I promise myself is that whenever I'm really sad or anxious or I'm seeing those pictures that I'd rather forget in my head, then the way I'm going to handle it is to speak with the people I love the most, and never get drunk in a bar. That's not the cure. Telling stories, hard anecdotes in a video like that, I respect people who do it, but that's not my way. My anecdotes, my stories of being in danger is something, it's a door I open, and then I need to close that door again with the people that I trust and love the most. So maybe that's the advice. You need someone around you who can carry you as well, because this burden of what you're going to see is not something you can carry just by yourself. In a conflict zone, everything is under extreme stress. You have the different groups who all want to tell their truth, and they might lie to you. And even worse, you might take that lie and pass it on to the rest of the world. So being extremely careful and critical to the information you receive is super important. In the end, you're there, you're with your camera, there's some people in front of you, and you're trying to express the emotions they're going through, and you're doing your best to get those pictures. And believe it or not, but sometimes in a conflict zone, the challenge is also just to capture it. You might see, a movie and everything is just shooting and bang, bang. In reality, it looks different. And sometimes I've been in conflict zones or in crisis, and the situation is horrible, but it's hard to get a picture. It's hard to get access to that place where it's happening and be able to capture that in an image. That is sometimes the reality, that it might happen, but getting it into a picture, that is sometimes really a challenge. One of the first difficult stories I did was when I was 24, 25, I traveled to Niger, an African country in the Sahara. They were having hunger, a food crisis, and people were dying in large numbers. And I wanted to go. No one was talking about this in the media, and I thought this is not right. So I decided to go. I prepared as well as I could, and off I went with my small camera. And I photographed people. I photographed the mothers with their small children. I photographed children the age of 3, 5, 6, dying of hunger. And it was horrible. But I also learned about myself that I could do it. I could withstand it. I could take it, and I could photograph it. And even more important, I felt that power of the photography when I came back and published those pictures. So that was one of the first more complicated stories I did. And I think for me, it was an eye-opening. And since then, I've been trying to put myself in places where I really feel I can make a difference. So if you talk about risk in a conflict zone, I think it's important to know that it's not just like the movies. You like to have the idea that you can control the risk yourself, just as if you're driving too fast. And the faster you drive, the more risk there is. Well, it's not like that. You might die on the way back to the hotel. A bomb might hit the hotel while you're sleeping. The guy you thought you could trust, maybe you cannot trust him. So being aware that you cannot control the things and that what you think is the risk might not be the risk is crucial to keep your own safety. If you go into a conflict zone, I think the first question is why you're going. Ask yourself that. Really ask yourself. Don't try to tell any lies to anyone. Just be honest to yourself. Why are you going? Is there any way you can tell the story without going there? Then I would suggest you do it. If you really feel that is needed, that's where you need to go. Try to get a lot of advices from someone you know, someone you respect, who can introduce you. You need to learn about safety. You need to learn about preparations. You need to learn about first aid. There's a lot of things you can barely prepare for, the emotional effects. But all of those aspects are really important in a conflict zone. And whoever tells you just to go, they're bullshit, and they're not going to carry you afterwards. When we talk about working in a crisis area or war zone, the biggest mistakes I've done is probably following other people. Like being with a group of other photographers and then going into their car, following whatever they were doing that day, putting my own limits in their hands. So that's what I'm really trying to do when I'm working in a difficult area like that, is to put my own limits, make my own risk assessments and follow it, and not just leave it in the hands of a driver, of a creative photographer you just met in the hotel lobby, or a translator whose uncle might blah blah blah, or in the pickup truck of a soldier who used to be a dentist but now he's a fighter. So make your own risk assessments. Be true to your own heart. Don't let yourself be pushed around or pressured, and take care of yourself. Take care of your own soul, the soul of others. What you're experiencing might damage you more than you know. One of the great advices I was giving is take care. You might not know the damage, the wounds, until it's too late. Whatever story I'm doing, I always try to prepare as much as possible. Of course, if you've been sent out to a hot zone, a conflict zone, you might have very short time for preparation, but it's super important as well. So prepare for, of course, the safety and the research and all those things that are that you need to prepare for, the logistics. Boy, there's so much. And then working in the field. That sometimes we just talk about working in the field, but the preparation is half of it. Then afterwards, the editing process, that's where you're going to show that you're not just lucky, but you know what you were doing. If you're working in a story, you need to find the different pieces that puts together that story. Some of those images might not be the most dramatic, but it's really the most honest and important pictures to actually tell the story. Too much photography in war zones, in my opinion, it's all about the bang bang. It's all about the explosion, and not enough who made the bomb, who's earning money from making that bomb, why are they doing it, what is their motivation. So that was the photography I like the most from conflict zones. It's not just about the explosion, but about all those things around it that really gives me a picture, really gives me a comprehensive understanding of what is going on. To me, the greatest gift, the biggest accomplishment that I've been doing is when I am looking at other people and I see tears in their eyes after seeing my work. I mean, that's bigger than anything. Seeing how my work can make an impact on other people, how it can get to their hearts. And when it gets to your heart, it will, you want to do something about it. So to me, that's the greatest gift. That's the greatest achievement, is when I see the tears in the eyes of a stranger that is seeing my work. Then, we can talk about publications and exhibitions and prizes, awards, all of that. In the end, the tears in the eyes of a stranger who's seeing your work, that to me that's the greatest thing. That's when you really feel you're making a difference. And it will encourage you to carry on. I use many cameras. I love many kind of cameras. I was shooting with an analog Hasselblad on film in Libya. I've been shooting on a digital large format in the conflict in Colombia, and also in Libya during the war. I photographed with a very fast camera like a Canon. So I've seen amazing war photography shot on an iPhone. I mean, whatever. It all depends on the story you want to tell. And then you will find the camera that has that temperament, that has that technique, that can really express that emotion that you want to pass on. Those areas, that's not where you're going to learn to take pictures. You learn to take pictures somewhere else. And then only, if that's the only place you can tell the story, then you might go. So all that hard experience, having, working so much with the camera that it's almost a part of your body, that you need to do something else. Because once you're in that field and things are hot, dangerous, difficult, then that's not the moment to learn how to operate your camera. Thank you for watching. If you want to see some of my work, you can visit my website, social media. All the best, and stay safe.